Bulovinaka, namaste and good evening. My name is Vijay Narayan. You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk, and tonight we have two guests. That's the CEO of the Fiji Commerce and Employers Federation, Edward Bernard, and the Director of the Fiji Higher Education Commission, Dr. Naisele. Tonight we will be talking about the National Skills Gap Assessment Survey, a report that has come out a few weeks ago, and of course some concerning numbers there. First ever time that we've got a report published by the Fiji Bureau of Statistics, and we're talking about how this affects every single Fijian, you, me and everyone, whether you are an employer trying to run a business, a student deciding on what to study, or a worker wondering about your future in this country. This report has some startling figures and we need to take action, so let's get on with it. Our first question, Edward. The survey covered 374 businesses. You had a response of 91%, a great response rate, a credible sample. When you look at the headline findings, what is one thing that really, something that hit you the hardest?
Well, Vijay, I think, thank you for having me in the show. Second time, different topic. The figure that hit me the hardest was the 79% increase in foreign workers compared to the growth in local workers. I think that, for many years, the private sector has been saying that, we are having this, skills gap across all industries. And I think what this report does is it evidenced what the private sector has been saying all these years. And in fact, it's not a skills gap, it's actually a full-blown crisis. We're not finding the right number of workers, and we're not finding the kind of workers who have the skills, qualifications and the behaviors. So that figure, 79% increase in foreign workers compared to local workers, is a startling figure.
It's a big number, sample, as I said, Dr. Edhi, in relation to 374 businesses, 91% the response rate, giving a credible sample of the figures that are now staring us at the face. What's the one figure that hit you the hardest?
To me, Vijay and the viewers tonight, it's more about the figures on the trade skills that are missing, that have sort of been highlighted, that from us, the supply side, from the commission side, looking after 57 registered higher education institutions, how can we ensure that the numbers that we train in our institutions connect and align to the needs of the industries in terms of the skills. So the numbers are basically all the TVET trade skills area. You can see chefs number one actually. So I'll have to get back to my universities, likewise for the other non-universities that are delivering courses at certificate level, diploma level, even at a degree level, to ensure what are the levels of chefs that are needed to match the needs for the industry, for that matter.
We'll talk about it a bit more, because one thing is about keep churning out more graduates every year, and the other issue is in relation to the ones who have come out and been in Fiji, upskill. How do we hold them back? And we will talk about that further. And Edward, just going to the report, it identifies 95 distinct skills that are missing from Fiji's labor market. 95 is a big number. And at the top of that list, according to the report, chefs, IT technicians, accountants, electricians, machine operators. These are not just small specializations, they are core, everyday skills that businesses require. How are businesses actually coping right now?
That is very true, Vijay. And if you look at the 95 skills, it ranges from various industries. And then also the minimum qualifications requirement for these skills range from high school graduate, TVET graduate, and also graduate in academia. So this is, this indicates the breadth and the depth of the crisis that we have today. And industries A lot of times I get a call from business owners and say, 50% of my machines are not working today because I can't find workers. People have not turned up to work, these key machines that are specialized machines, no one's able to operate it because, I'm having issues with work permits being approved on time. So this is the different challenges that employers face. But what remains is the breadth and the depth of skills that is not available, that is shown through this report, should be a serious concern for us.
It is a crisis.
It is definitely a crisis. As I said, it's not enough workers that we are finding, so the number of workers, and number two is not enough right workers that we're finding with skills, qualifications, and behaviors. Behavior being one of the major ones at the moment.
Talk about behavior after this. Dr. Edi, 95 distinct skills, and these are everyday skills that are needed. The businesses have termed it as a crisis.
Yes, I well and truly with the report, especially in that number. For us, again, from the supply side, this crisis has been around for quite some time because we are just training and training and training. We do not have any real data to tell us at what sector area, at what skill area that we need to train specifically. And for the last 10 years, the world has actually moved and industries have shifted to another level. And yet, most of our trainings from the provider supply side is still relevant as some 10 years ago. Building construction, for example, we are going into prefab buildings now. That's my more worry. I don't know whether any of my carpentry program have that program, niche skill area in construction. So it is the report is so critical for us because it gives us that alignment pathway because we're going to identify the different schools that are offering the different trade and special areas and how best they can tweak and adjust their program to align to the needs of the industry. Programs need to be determined by the industry sectors. They are to determine what goes into the classroom and the level of delivery that are required so that to continue to make us current for the sake of the industry sectors, Vijay.
We had invited the Fiji Human Resources Institute for a discussion, but however, due to an unfortunate incident or circumstances, the person who was invited could not make it, but we will still have the discussion regarding human resources as well. Edward, the survey shows foreign workers numbers, you alluded to this earlier, grew by 79% between 2022 and 2025. That's from 1,248 expats to 2,235. And Bangladeshi nationals are consistently the single largest group of foreign workers in Fiji. That's accounting for about 26%. Is Fiji importing workers to fill gaps that Fijians should be filling?
So if you look at the labor market, there's a big shift in Fiji. Not only we are a sending country, now we're becoming a major receiving country of labor. And just by looking at the number of positions that local employers cannot fill, 95 positions, they'll have to make sure that their machines operate, the office remains open, and consumers continue to get the service and the products that they deserve. So with this, there's a widening of this trend, bringing in foreign workers. In the last 3 years, Bangladesh and India has been our main source markets for foreign workers. But also, if you look at the report, we're also getting workers from Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea, and Tonga in the region. So that's an indication that we're widening our source markets in order to fill this gap. That said, getting in a foreign worker is not relatively cheap. It's about $3,000 on average for one foreign worker. You got to pay for their recruitment costs, you pay for their airfares and the bond to government before even landing that person here. So the preference is, looking at local workers and reskilling and upskilling them. But unfortunately, we don't have the skills here at the moment, and companies are now opting more to get in foreign workers.
It has just become necessary. You cannot have any other solution, right?
That is correct. Until the supply side from the institutions, regularize, until the labor market actors in a country start putting good labor market policies in place to make sure that our labor market is working for our local employers and not for foreign labor market and foreign employers, we still will be dependent on foreign workers.
You talked about behavior, and we talk about discipline. We talk about the serious productivity issues that are emerging, which were not there maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. When you said that some employees say 50% of the machines are not working because the workers have not shown up. They haven't left the country, but they're not showing up. How are you dealing with that as employers?
So the net effect of this is low productivity. When you don't have workers turning up to work, there's high absenteeism. When you have workers turning up to work but not being productive, presenteeism, this all impacts the bottom line of companies. So this is when employers have to make the hard decision of to automate, to go into AI, to bring in foreign workers. Because when foreign workers come in, they come in with not only skills and qualification, but they come in with behaviors that employers need for them to get the job done.
We will not go into the issue about the Bangladeshis are coming and taking over the jobs. It's why that is happening, Dr. Edhi. One of those things that's been discussed now is the behavior, the discipline, and the productivity issues, and it's from the Fijian perspective. From the Higher Education Commission, what is being done? Are there some plans to ensure this is also part of the program to have a holistic graduate coming out?
Yes, Vijay. For us, the institutions, one of the three things, because when we talk about the higher education institution, we talk about teaching and learning. Eh? So when it comes to teaching and learning, there are three key components in teaching and learning. For us teachers, first one is, some writers they call it the 3H, education of the head, which is the knowledge bit of training, or theory. So that is actually cognitive skills. Eh? So that can be done by the schools, no problem, at tertiary level. Eh? The second one is, the second H is education of the hands, which is the psychomotor skills. Practical training, hands-on. So after learning the theory, the students are transferred into a lab or into a workplace where you do the hands-on skills. The third one is a tough one, which is the education of the heart, the attitude, the attributes. That is where we at the higher education sector is facing a challenge. We're going right down to recheck the whole education system from preschool to primary school to secondary. Because right now the level in which the world has shifted and our students at university level, this is the main worry. I understand that some of our universities are teaching governance and ethics, which is not good enough. Counseling is coming on board. I'm glad the Ministry of Education is making that compulsory for our students in primary school. Career counseling, and even counseling to ensure that they have the right attitude. Maybe I know a lot of parents are listening. Back home, the teaching back home is very important, underpinning Pacifica philosophies or Vuvale, Itoke philosophies or whatever, underpinning grounding, where the heart or the attitude is grounded. So that the student, when they reach the university level, there's not so much to concentrate on for the lecturers in terms of the attitude. Just basically on the cognitive, which is the theory, and likewise for the practical. So for us, sort of a pre-measure to help curb that is to go back into the drawing board and encourage our institution to align. Now we're currently working closely with the ministry how best we can get this, because it's to do with the attitude and the heart and the value system of any human being for that matter. Before they reach at least secondary school level, they are well attuned to what they want to do later on. Career counseling is very, very important. So we are working closely with the ministry, and we're teaming up with the career section of the Ministry of Education to help promote that missing bit, which when they come to the workplace, they are work ready, not only the cognitive skills, the knowledge, the hands-on, but more importantly, the attitude where that comes in.
And the other thing, I was at the Fiji Institute of Chartered Accountants Congress a few weeks ago, and this actually came up about a lot needs to start from home in terms of how we ensure that the families ensure that they spend time with their children, and the issue of discipline, the issue of respect, the issue of manners, the issue of being productive with your lives, And if you have those things addressed in your formative years, it will definitely come forward. Not that everything the school system will be teaching you, but I understand that because we are already seeing the issues emerging from primary and secondary schools. The teachers are struggling with what's going on. The curriculum is an issue. I know it's been looked at as far as the review is concerned. But what's then coming out on the other end at the university level, you can't expect someone who does not have those values instilled to come and change at the university level.
No, it's very sorry.
But Vijay, I also want to mention that the behavioral challenges need not only be addressed at the family and tertiary education level. We also need, when you're looking at the labor market, you also need to look at making sure that the reintegration services of seasonal workers, when they come back, needs to then be very effective. Because the whole premise of the seasonal work program was that when they return with the skills and the behavior that employees need. And if you don't have a reintegration process where you put them back into the industries, then you have a lot of problems to see whether that our seasonal work program is effective or not. So I think for behavioral issues, a lot of our workers that go overseas, they can learn good workplace behaviors, in Australia and New Zealand. But when they come back, we need to make sure that that is integrated back into the workplaces.
The report clearly highlights about the skills that's being lost, also the government schemes like National Employment Centre, commonly known as NEC, and PALM, which is the scheme there where our workers are going on the seasonal schemes. Now let's look at it plainly. We're training people and essentially gifting them to Australia and New Zealand. If so, how long can Fiji sustain this when we're at a crisis point already?
I think one of the key findings of the report is that our labor market is not working for our local employers. So we need to make sure that the labor market works for our employers, that it does not work for other employees in other countries. I think that if we're able to understand that, I think that's the first step to it. The second step to it is that we've got labor market actors, also agencies, and they need to start working and coordinating with each other to be able to get this, to set this right. I mean, if you have the Ministry of Employment just focusing on sending people out, the Ministry of Immigration taking so much time in processing work permits and not making sure that foreign workers get to the workplace and start working on the machines and so forth. And if you look at education, Ministry of Education, just turning out students, without the skills, qualification, behavior, then there's a huge problem there.
Bigger problem.
Yes, correct. So all these, labor market actors need to come together, coordinate, and work together. And that was one good example. Is while we're sending workers overseas or seasonal work, when they return after 7 months or 9 months from Australia or New Zealand, we need to see how we can integrate those skills back in the industry, and that is not working very effectively at the moment.
It's really leaking badly because it's showing in the report in terms of the number of people that are going, and mainly NEC and PALM are the two main ones. Are we just training our people and gifting them to Australia and New Zealand, Dr. Eddie?
I'm not really saying that. That's actually, I go get what Mr. Bernard just mentioned. Our priority is our home front. So we want to train for our industries, for our people here in Fiji. Overseas actually is our second door opportunity for those who want to move out, provided that there are better opportunities out there. But for us, we train to ensure that our process at the Commission in terms of institution registration and programs accreditation. Now, one of the things we always ask institutions that apply for accreditation for programs, is the program demand driven? Is there any market, are there markets available for this particular program? And learners, having completed 3, 4 or 1 year training, there's market available. So these are some of the questions that I ask at accreditation level. Has the licensing authority, if it's to do with electrical staff, electrical feeder mechanic, EFL, have they got to buy in a worthy part of the program development package? So right now at that accreditation level, it is compulsory that industry must have a strong input in the development of that training package. Whatever that may be, what's the duration? It can be 6 months or 1 year for short courses like hospitality and tourism. There must be strong input of the industry into the program before they come through and pass for accreditation, whatever the level that may be, a certificate level, a diploma level, or degree level. But yes and truly, home front is always number one. Number two, of course, we have overseas institution coming on board to register with us. They still feel that most of our students lack that niche skills to be able to match into the Australian market, for example. So for that matter, if someone needs an aged care, for example, certificate level 3 or level 4, they will still want to employ at their qualifications level, certificate level and using Australian qualification for that matter. For that matter, they do upskill to gear up in whatever that may be when the workers or the students, they move across Australia, New Zealand, or any country for that matter.
You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. We'll be back after this break.
Every day, thousands of Fijians turn to one place to know what is happening, for the stories that matter, for the moments that bring us together, for the news you trust. Recognized by BBC Media Action Research as one of Fiji's most trusted news sources, that place is Fiji Village. And because Fiji keeps moving, so do we. We've listened to how you read, watch and listen, what you love, what you want more of, and what could simply be easier. And now the wait is over. The new Fiji Village website is now live. Built with you in mind, made smarter, made faster, made for the way you connect with us every day. No more searching for your favorite videos. Watch Now brings everything together in one place, ready when you are. Missed your favorite radio show? Head to Listen, your home for live radio, podcasts and audio content whenever it suits you. Sports fans can now get live scores faster with our new scoreboard feature. Need a story explained? Ask AI is there to help as well. And reading late into the night? Switch on dark mode and scroll in comfort. The same trusted news now with a smarter, easier experience built for you. Fiji Village, your trusted news provider.
Welcome back. You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. Our guest tonight, the CEO of the Fiji Commerce and Employers Federation, Mr. Edward Bernard, and Dr. Eddie Naisele, and he's the director of the Fiji Higher Education Commission. We're talking about this report which has just been released, the National Skills Gap Assessment Survey, and the figures that are in it, and we need to take action. As it's been stated by Edward, it is at a crisis level and we need to act now. The survey shows that between 2022 and 2025, male employment grew by 15%, while female employment grew by only 6%. And by last year, the gender gap had actually widened. Females now represent only 40.7% of the workforce. What is driving women out of the workforce, Edward?
That's a very interesting question. And I think if you look at the widening gender gap, the 26.6% youth not in education, training and employment, then you look at the 95 positions that are available that employers are not able to complete. I mean, it begs the question of what are we doing in terms of bringing women and young people into the labor force and training them to provide the skills so that they can fill these positions. I think a lot of the gender women employed, there need to be a specific study on that. There's a lot of scenarios that happen. One is perhaps majority of the women, like a large portion of the population, are dependent on remittance. Perhaps their spouses are working overseas and sending money in, and they choose not to work. Perhaps they have registered with the National Employment Center. There's about 11,000 that has registered with the National Employment Center and not allowed to work. Perhaps they're there waiting to go give caregiving, work in horticulture, agriculture, accommodation industries in Australia. So there perhaps could be a wide range. But I just want to say, in the current labor market where we're finding it difficult to get locals in these jobs, it's a missed opportunity if we don't get women and young people and persons with disability into the labor market and into the labor market very quickly.
Yeah, that's interesting because and we need to look deeper into it, and thank you for giving a bit of an analysis there. We have to understand why women are not in the workforce compared to before. Why is it dropping? And the remittances, we can see 1.4 billion plus coming through from abroad for friends and families, the people who are sending in money. Of course, it's driving the economy, but at the same time, those people may be saying, I'm getting the money, I do not want to work. The one about the youth as well.
Absolutely. I mean, and then it begs you the question, like with most of our workers going overseas to the labor migration scheme, labor mobility scheme, is it really benefiting our workers here, benefiting our companies, our young people, our women? Why are we having so much? Why is the gender gap continuing to widen? Why are young people's, are not in more young people not employed? Why are we having this skills gap that we can't fill this position? Has the labor mobility scheme actually helped us? And the answer is no. So I think we really need to relook at our labor market and set that right. There's a lot of supply side challenges happening at the moment, but our labor market actors, the agencies that look after our labor market, need to get together and set that right. It's not the private sector's job to do that. Our job is to hire somebody, get the business running, so people can earn wages, fair wages, high wages, that the unions are demanding at the moment, and for us to come and try to set the labor market like we've done in this report here, I think it's asking more from employers than what they're already doing.
Eddie, you definitely can't do things on your own. He can't do things on his own with the Commerce and Employers Federation. There needs to be a holistic approach. For example, if we're just letting people go on the neck and palm, and we are not even approving work permits on time, there's a huge vacuum left. And then now we are seeing the gaps in terms of the number of women in the workforce and the youths. On whether they are going for education or even entering the workforce. What's the analysis that you have managed to do after looking at the report on this?
There is currently a big shift in female students' enrollment in the so-called male-oriented trade. So like you would see on the road a number of female students climbing up a pole, so doing apprenticeship with FNU, for example, and the trend has quickly shifted across which is a good sign. It's something that we've been advocating for the last 5 or so years. So it's the shifting mindset. Likewise, for the male students also to shift to the female-dominated area, like chefs. We always think that chefs, vasango, cooking are basically for the women. No, you go to Sheraton, you go to the kitchen, all the white, mostly foreigners are there. So how can we replace that with our local people? So surprisingly, Vijay and viewers tonight, our female enrollment for tertiary, including universities, has been increasing for the last 5 years since 2020, even completion as well, even though there's a drop overall. So we are currently doing a employer survey where this graduate ending up to, I hope to give you release that by the end of this year, in terms of the employment survey and employment impact survey, more importantly. How are they performing at our place? That's where maybe F7 and our team will work together to give a better view, because we're having increased enrollment, even at completion, topping the male students, but they are dropping out somewhere. It could be something to do maybe with our culture or systems or whatever it may be, which may need another round of survey altogether in totally. But well and truly, it's critical that we need to get the females and the women on board in the workforce.
Of course, in terms of they are doing well from the school and university system, and they make up a significant portion of our population, and they need to be given that opportunity. More analysis needs to be done in that data to ensure that we're looking into that. Now, here's a finding I think every policymaker should be worried about. Full-time employment grew by 15% according to the report. That sounds good. But part-time employment dropped by 22%. Now, we know that when people are at university or they're studying at a certain education institution or they're doing certain things, they look for part-time employment as well. And it's a big thing overseas as well. The fact that it's dropping by 22%, that's a concern. And I do understand that there's some businesses who are struggling. They're at vulnerable points, and with a fuel crisis and other situations that can play a part in shaving off the workforce by having less part-timers. Edward, what are your thoughts on this, knowing that part-time employment is dropping quite dramatically?
Yeah, traditionally, part-time employment would be like the entry point, and this is where a lot of the workplace attachments, apprenticeships, happen. And this is usually the inflow of those, graduates or early graduates into the labor market, where you can then transform their skills and start integrating them into the workforce. And I think it's a number of reasons why that has happened. One is because employers, because of the skills gaps they're facing, are fast tracking them into permanent employment. Now that could be also a good thing because they're now having access to the full benefits of a full-time worker with salaries and other fringe benefits. But at the same time, are we fast tracking them quickly into the permanent positions without ensuring that they have the behaviors and the right skills, which then employees eventually complain about that they don't have. The second thing is that when in part-time employment, what a lot of employers used to do was provide a lot of training and reskilling for the workers, so that when they integrate into full-time employment, they have the right skills. And unfortunately, they are not able to do this because of the funds for training, which we're not able to access. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. But it also shows that employers are not creating schemes, innovative schemes to get people in part-time at the entry level, and then mentor and coach them through to the permanent positions. So I think there's a wide range of issues happening there. But traditionally, we always had part-time employment as an inflow into full-time positions, and a lot of apprenticeships and internships used to hang around, be included as part of that program.
That's interesting, Dr. Eddy, this issue about part-time employment and what Edward said, to get the students in while they're still studying something and they come into the program or they come into the workplace. I know here at our radio stations and at Fiji Village, there have been some schools like Maris Brothers High School or International School Suva, when they have started doing that at the high school level. They would approach us, this student is interested in this, do you have a place for workplace attachment just during the holidays? Unfortunately, many schools are not doing that, and we cannot be doing the same old, as you said earlier. 10, 15 years ago, maybe it was okay, holiday, okay, students don't need to go on attachment and understand what needs to change now, and what are you doing about this?
Yes, Vijay. We look at work part-time, especially from the school system, as critical, particularly what we call as structured workplace learning, which is just work attachment. So while they're still learning, they need to be attached to an industry for that matter. I'm talking about the one in universities, not yet for the school system, those in secondary schools. So now it's a compulsory requirement. Before a student can graduate, for all students, all learners, they have to complete their work attachment duration in any company for that matter. So there must be some agreement. If it's automotive mechanic, maybe Escomodos, I know a number has got MOUs with the key industry stakeholders for that matter. And this actually gives them that work-ready habits prior to actually graduating and joining the workforce for that matter. So that's one portion of part-time attachment, which currently is happening in the vocational TVET high school. But we also have the second, slowly push that through to the secondary school, where students are still doing the mainstream academic, preparing for year 11, 12, and 13 examination. At the same time, you're giving them a national qualification certificate level 1 or level 2 in any trade for that matter, specific for the TVET area. So right now, one of the schools in Suva, I can boldly say that they are championing that, and the head boy will be graduating this year, Fiji's 7th Form Examination Certificate, FSFE certificate, together with his certificate 2 or certificate 3 in automotive electrical. So I spoke to this young man a few years back. He's enjoying it while he's doing his Form 7. At the same time, he's grade 13. He's also doing a trade at his high school here in Sydney. So also happen, they also have a workshop and a vocational attached to the school. So That is the model. There's some initial discussion with the Honourable Minister and the Prime Minister in this regard regarding the shifting and under the TVET section of these skills towards the school so that they can have something similar to what it used to be done by the Maris. I mean, Maris students, likewise, Super Grammar, quite a few in secondary schools. When it's holiday time, they come to they join any workforce, just test for 1 week or 2 weeks while waiting for the 2 weeks break. But this is actually an ongoing pre-arranged with the school. At the end of the training, they are offered a qualification which has been pre-accredited for that matter.
We need to move quickly because it is at a crisis point, and while there's a will, we need to follow it with the execution as well. So I'm interested in maybe talking to the ministers concerned as well on how quickly they will move, because that is critical for things to be done. So it's good news that you are already looking in that area. The survey lists top strategies businesses are using to cope with skills loss. So I look from the report, it clearly shows you're not going to the foreign workers straight away. You're upskilling your current staff, you're re-engaging retired workers, you're hiring locally, and when it all fails, then you bring in foreign workers. Now, re-engaging retired workers, they come with a certain skill set. We just talked about it earlier, that sometimes, the discipline, the behavior issues that you're talking about, they can bring in a certain level of discipline to have that seniority where people will also look up to them in terms of that. How important is that?
I think that is very important, Vijay. But if you look at it, what that data tells us is that employers are still prioritizing local workers. They want to skill and upskill and reskill local workers. They want to re-engage those that have retired, and also they want to hire local workers. Those that are entering the workforce. So bringing in foreign workers is their second choice because, as I said, it's not relatively cheap bringing in foreign workers. But when you look at retirees and those that are engaged in retirement, I think that's a really good idea, especially if you want to shape behaviors. So these retirees, they have one thing they have is great experience, huge experience. So even if you have a young graduate coming in with the best qualifications, with the best skills that the industry offers, they still do not have the years of experience that we need for that particular job. Because besides the qualifications, you also have the minimum qualifications requirements number of years. And I think a lot of people are not looking at that also when you see people going out of the country. We're not only losing their skills, but the years of experience that that person has when they go out. But back to the retired workers, I think bringing them on board if they can work. So we know that the retirement age for government is 65, 60 years, is it? But FMPF is 55 years. So even if they can work a bit more, 5 more years, that'll be really good. Number 2 is they can provide a lot of coaching and mentoring for the young graduates that are coming in because of their wealth of experience. Because again, education and skills can only take you as far as when things are normal. But when things, there's disruptions in business and all that, this is where the experience kicks in to be able to rectify, to survive, to be more sustainable. So I think they can use a lot, we can use a lot of value from retired workers in this process.
Just a question, Dr. Evi. And, I'm not an expert in this field, but I will ask you anyway. The people who come off, like when they turn 55 or turn 60, and they're sharp, they can do what is required, they have gone through the mill, they've got the lived experience. Is there a way we can set up an institute where these group of people come and they teach short sessions on different things? For example, you would have the best of the best from the different sectors. Can that be facilitated? As I said, we have to think outside the box. Can that be done?
Yes, well and truly, Vijay. There are already some retirees that form some kind of company, so to speak. They're doing what's private tutoring and private lecturing. For schools, I know they meet every afternoon after school and also Saturdays and some Sundays. So they do special upskilling, particularly for those from primary school, secondary, and also for those that have finished and also doing doing other key critical work that are currently demanded. Like a couple months ago, we have the retired army musicians that used to form the army band. So they are helping, right now they're helping Levuka Public School for their music class in drums. And so you see them, when that school performs, actually behind that are these retirees, about 7 to 10 of them. So they're giving back into the community because they came to us and said, we have retired and how can we help? Yes, definitely. So they have set up something. So we are trying to connect them to industries and institutions that can help capitalize on the skills that they have gained over the many years, and still want to share that to our people here locally.
Yeah, the other issue is, like, for example, I'll just give that as an example. For example, accountants, we see it's in the top 3, which is the third one in terms of skills gap. So you have someone like Michael E. Joy, who's retired, he's still sharp. And I'm talking about not just the graduate coming out, but the people who have come into the profession, but they still need that upskilling, that forward thinking, the lived experience, the learning. What do you think of some ideas like that?
I think that those are brilliant ideas. But also, if you, in that mix, if you want to also add, mentoring by someone like that to an accounting lecturer, to a financial man, a teacher in a maths teacher, accounting teacher in high school, I think that will add added value in it. Because one thing is providing the direct support to the student, but you also need to make sure that you provide the direct support to the person who's teaching the student. And a lot of those teachers in primary, high school, and even I see in academia, do not have the current knowledge of what's actually happening on the ground. So if that kind of support is provided in 2 streams, both to the student and also to the teaching person, I think that will add more value.
The best from the industry to be into the system, education system as well, something to consider?
Yes, already, Vijay, we already have that in place. FNU have recruited quite a number of specialists that have retired, likewise for USP and Uni-Fiji, and even other smaller institutions like in the trade area. Montfort Boys Town have hired a few other technical colleges around that are maximizing the reuse of the retirees that have reached year 55 or 60 for that matter, and they're still very much not only the skills but more the ethics bit of the whole work of many years that they've been through it, and pass this on to the younger workers that are part of the organization.
You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. We'll be back after this break.
At Communications Fiji Limited, we are more than just radio. We are Fiji and the Pacific's largest and most dynamic media group, reaching people wherever they are, however they connect. We connect daily with over 3.77 million listeners across the region. Let's create something amazing together. On air, online, on the streets, on stage, Communications Fiji Limited is where connection happens. With innovation, reach, and creativity, we are the complete media partner for your business.
Welcome back. You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. Our guest tonight, the Director of the Fiji Higher Education Commission, Dr. Vijay Naisele, and the CEO of the Fiji Commerce and Employers Federation, Edward Bernard. The Higher Education Commission, Edward, is responsible for regulating what Fiji's universities and training institutions produce. When you look at this survey, we see chefs, IT technicians, accountants, electricians and engineers are the top 5 skills we are losing. Does our current higher education and training system actually produce enough of these people?
That's a good question, and I think that's the next step this survey is going to take, to see actually how many of the people in those categories are available and employers can employ. But I think if you look at the scheme of things, there's always been a question of what can the private sector do to also then support tertiary institutions. And all along the private sector has always used that 1% FNU levy to support the tertiary education providers to fine-tune those that are coming into the labor market. And unfortunately at the moment we're not able to do that because about 50% of that goes to the medical scheme of government, 40% goes to ACCF for accidents in the road and workplaces, and we only have 10% to work with. of
Okay,
the dollar.
for people to understand who may not understand the levy.
Right.
So the employers pay the levy. Just explain that for our viewers, please.
Correct. So employers pay a levy. It's called FNU levy. Previously, it was called NTPC, TPF levy, and NTC levy, when National Training Council was there. And you pay 1% of your total wage bill. Now, from 2019 to 2024, about 4,800 employers paid the levy, and that amounted to an average about $25 million a year. And this is what the employers can use to skill and upskill and
So
train
the
their
levy,
staff.
the idea of the levy is for upskilling.
Correct. Correct. The upscaling. And in 2019, there was a decision made by government to then use it for other purposes. One purpose was 50% of that, about 15 million, goes to for free doctors, what the government calls a private-public partnership, and about 40% of that, about $12 million, goes to the ACCF for
Not the private sector.
not the private sector. And 10% of that 1% remains with NTPC. And after NTPC takes out its cost of running the scheme, then employers are able to access that. And if you just take on average, if you divide that 1% comes to about the 10% of the 1% comes to about 2.5 million a year. And if you divide that by the number of contributing employers, that's $520 per employer per year. That is definitely not sufficient to support skilling and reskilling and support the education institutions that Dr. Edi looks after, so that private sector can play a role.
I call it as it is. It's bad budgeting. Bad budgeting. We're going into a crisis of skills gap and other issues. And here we have money is being paid by the employers to make sure there's upskilling, but then it's meant for other means. In 2019, that decision made, definitely that decision needs to be relooked at. Have you asked for that decision to be?
We have asked many times. I think the last budget consultations we did, so the recent one we did, the last budget consultation, the Professor Biman Prasad, when he's Minister of Finance, he did, and he did undertake the responsibility of doing an inquiry in this with a view to addressing the issue. But again, if you look at the findings of the report, if you want employers to continue to upskill, reskill, re-engage retirees and hire local workers to do it well, we need to make sure that they are resourced well.
Especially when we're at a crisis point. I know an inquiry can be conducted, but what is the result of that? Coming back to that, you need these funds to make sure things move, and things move quickly. Have you spoken to the Minister for Finance to ensure something is done about it this year?
Yes, a number of ministers we've connected with regarding this grant system, levy grant, that used to be, as Mr. Bernard has alluded to, we used to be there with NTPC and TPF. When this actually was taken away, it gives that huge gap and the burden for the industries to come on board. I remember I was at NTPC at that time. I used to see them come after 5 o'clock, all come for upskilling. They would stay there till 9:30 p.m. Just to get the skills gap. And that's all of a sudden, that's just been missing for the last 10 or so years. And how best can get on board, it'll be critical. So we've had some initial discussions with the relevant ministries, even the Permanent Secretary for Employment, because this fund used to be with the Ministry for Employment at one time, sort of supporting through because of labor and employment at that time. It was under them. So yes, well and truly, I believe that needs to come back, and hopefully we can help support FSF and the others that will be able to take this on board. We're also putting that into the national TVET policy review because of skills training, and hence the need to upskill our people already working, to give them that leverage and the skills needed, as per demand by the employers, by the industries for that matter.
Yeah, we understand you can have your reviews, but at the same time, this action, I think, is necessary. Is pertinent that it is done as soon as possible. We know in the next few weeks the government will be announcing the national budget, and hopefully your wish list is there, including this one that you're pushing for, that you get that back so that you start the upskilling. So discussions, your submissions all in, Edward?
It is in, and we hope to write specifically to the Prime Minister on this issue, because the levy is NTPC levy, and that's under FNU, and we also understand that FNU is now under the Prime Minister, so we now will write directly to the Prime Minister to see how we can help us address this challenge.
Now, Dr. Edi, we talked about the 5 skills we are losing, the top 5, chefs, IT technicians, accountants, electricians, and engineers are the top 5 skills we are losing. Does our current higher education and training system actually produce enough of these people, or are we producing the wrong skills in the wrong quantities, which has further created or exacerbated the situation?
Thanks, Vijay. They are both. Not enough, and also we might be producing skills that are not directly connecting. That's one of the challenges too that we're facing at the Commission. We're getting graduate coming out, and then when they join the workplace, we found out that that is not the real skill matching to the skill required as per industry for that level. So the report is critical for us from the supply side, because we're going to go back into the drawing board and with a subcommittee that Mr. Bernard has mentioned. Identify the niche area in this area, that specific skill area, so that we can alert our institutions, chefs, technicians, accountants, IT, machine operators, big time, in specific area, maybe crane drivers for that matter, and a few other key machine operators that are currently needed. Most of the workers that come and work for the day, they just learn on the job for 1 or 2 weeks before they get the skills, and there's no guarantee of any assurance of any qualifications gained from that. So we're also working with LTA, particularly for the machine operators, to help strengthen the part so that whoever gains some kind of a short course in there, would there be some kind of recognition of that particular program or qualification for that matter. So we've had 1 or 2 meetings with the CEO LTA in that regard. For that one, there are number 5, I think, machine operators for that matter.
Yeah, Vijay, so I just wanted to add, while we are concerned with a high number of foreign workers that are taking up these positions, the positive there is that, and to address the skills and the behaviors that is coming out of the institutions, is that by law we are required to have an understudy. So if we are able to use these foreign workers that have the skills and the experience to impart that knowledge to our young graduates, I think that will be a really good bonus, in addition to other benefits that the employers are experiencing with the foreign workers. So I think there's also a win-win situation in this scenario with the recruitment of foreign workers.
I hope that understudy issue is going in, because we're now seeing even foreign workers taking up supermarket shelves.
Well, the challenge here is that if you don't have local workers stepping up to take these positions, there's no understudy. But if you're looking at addressing the unemployed young people, 26.6% not in employment, education and training, and bringing them up to see how they can understudy these foreign workers and grasp the skills that they have. When these foreign workers then move on back to their country, then these local workers can step up. So I think that's an opportunity that we can use to address the labor market challenges.
But the fact is that we do not need foreign workers to come and set up supermarket shelves. So even work in restaurants, they're not even at the chef level, they're coming in. Why is that happening? What's the feedback coming from the ground?
That is correct. And the Minister for Immigration has always complained to me that he's receiving applications to stock supermarket shelves, and he does not have a verified list of skills gap. And I think what we have with part of this report is a very verified list of skills gap done by the Bureau of Statistics, an agency of government, that tells you that we can't fill positions as low as that. Even drivers, we can't do that. Receptionists, cashiers.
But it is being done, even drivers as well.
And because there
is
local workers.
We have people, but they don't want to work.
Yeah, so you can have economically active people in the labor market, but whether they want to work, whether they're seeking work, that's a different story altogether.
So that is from the employer's perspective. Jobs are being advertised, vacancies are available, locals are not wanting the jobs.
That's correct, and we've got different situations. As I said, people are with the National Employment Center registered, they're not allowed to work. People are receiving remittances and they're choosing not to work. We had one employer who had a recruitment drive for locals. about 30 to 50% of those tested positive for drugs. So there's a variety of issues that are happening with our labor market at the moment. And the labor market actors really, really need to tie this down and try to, make that right.
Comes back to discipline and behavior. Now,
Absolutely.
people are not looking forward to wanting to even work, Dr. Naisele.
Yeah. See, it goes back to what we've been talking earlier on regarding the work ethics and work attitudes. Now, if maybe because we have that idea, this is our home. If you don't work, definitely we're going to go home. There's mom, there's auntie, there's more, there's Tavale there, will give me some food on the table. But for them, for these foreign workers, they come in, they don't have relatives here. So they would sacrifice, and employers, they are watching. If I happen to work in a supermarket, for example, and then there's maybe an urgent meeting in the Vanua that I need to attend to at 5 p.m. So I leave that. But the person who comes from abroad doesn't have that here locally. So again, the work ethics, what does this work means to me and my family if I take up this work? So again, it goes back to that third H that I'm talking about, the education of the heart. We need to train our people, the value system of why it's so important for them to work after training, after education, to work and help contribute in whatever little way for our nations.
You can't get that person to be coming and training at the employer's level when they get the job, right? Because by that time, you're expecting that person to have that value ready, attitude ready.
Correct.
Now, is it about pay? Because some people are saying leaving because there's more money overseas. Some have said that I spoke to some nurses and they were saying that I'm leaving because of the conditions. Overtime is not being paid and I can't do enough for the patients, so I'll just leave to where there'll be more facilities available. I'll get better pay. Is it about the pay as well, Edward?
Well, that's a very current question at the moment, wages. So, if you look at it, in the last 10 years, we've had about 115% increase in minimum wage. Last 3 years, it was about 86%. So we're at $5 now. And not only the minimum wages increase, sectoral wages have also increased. So there's 10 different sectors under the wages regulation. That has increased, and they pay more than the minimum wage, $6, $7, $8. But in addition to that, unions have negotiated with employers about cost of living adjustment. And a very recent one is February this year, where Mr. Felix Anthony's union negotiated a 12.5% increase in salary for the bar town council workers because of inflation. So that's another way of increasing. Then you got the performance management systems in their workplaces where they got increments and they get bonuses. And then on top of that, you then have this $1.4 billion of remittance that goes to the household. It doesn't go to the government or doesn't go to the businesses in the first instance, but it goes to the household. So incomes individually and at the household has increased, as much as it can, as much as businesses can sustain it. But then how high do you go? Do you go higher than Australia? Do you go higher than New Zealand? Right now, our minimum wage, for instance, is 60% higher than Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea is an economy that is 4 times larger than our economy. So how much higher can you go in terms of wages? The Fiji Commerce Employers Federation, we support decent work and fair wages, but we must ensure that we can afford it, that businesses can be sustainable, and that employment opportunities continue, and that we don't have to, close shop, lay off workers, and so forth.
Sustainability is the key there. The issue in relation to, for example, chefs. If you're losing a chef and it's number one at the moment, and you're getting a chef from Australia, you definitely have to pay more for them. Is that being looked at to ensure that the current salary scales of those skill sets are re-looked at, because it's a different issue altogether now?
When you're hiring expatriates, of course, in those skills area, chefs, IT, the expectation is to pay global market rate. That definitely, because they come with global requirements, like in terms of qualifications, masters, years of experience. So we have to make sure that we pay for that when they bring them across. And a lot of those that are paying for that is, of course, 5-star, 4-star, 3-star resorts. However, the smaller restaurants and takeaway shops and so forth are not able to afford that. In fact, they compete amongst each other to get the best person or the right skills. And this is where it happens. If you increase wages so far up, will these MSMEs be able to afford it? And the answer, of course, is no. And then how do you make sure that we pay fair wages for fair work based on the local economic and the business context we have here in Fiji?
And definitely you need to re-strategize after this report on where things matter the most. So, Dr. Naisele, is this fundamentally a pay problem, or can Fiji compete, or do we need a completely different strategy?
Fiji can compete, but need to revisit the strategy, because this alignment has sort of been missing for a long time. How can the supply side continue to meet the demands of our industries in terms of skill area? And definitely with this 91 key skill area now identified, that gives us a much more clearer perspective. Now how can we pick up the pieces from on, get back on the drawing table and set the strategy to ensure that we work closely with the FSF and key stakeholders to align whatever we do from the supply side, so that at the end of the day, it's about our people, our market, our industries are satisfied first before we can give them the opportunity if they want to move across for what's the so-called greener pastures. But yes, well and truly for us here, I know a lot has been said around the supply demand over the last years for past governments and so on. I think under this regime, it's important to acknowledge the support of government for this particular project, and this enable this project to come on board and actually give us a much clearer picture. How can we really connect the supply side to the industry stakeholders, for that matter?
Edward, I know that employees are upskilling and reskilling as part of this mitigation action so far. It can only go so far in terms of how much you can do and how much more can be done. Now, from your perspective, what does a genuine national upskilling program look like? And this is not just a workshop here and a seminar there, but something that actually moves and addresses this crisis we're having. And do we have the infrastructure to do that?
So to your first part of the question, employers are actually paying more now for reskilling and upskilling because of the inability to access 100% of that 1%. So they are dipping more into their budget and spending more on upskilling and reskilling just to make sure that their businesses are operating. What does this look like? I am a product of an internship program. Straight out of high school, there was about 30 of us taken to the Vatukola gold mines, where we were trained in different areas, and we became mine managers. And a lot of people went on after that to lead the mine and to look and hold important positions in other industries. It was only that scheme was only possible when and designed when employers were able to access the kind of funding that they could at that time. So what a good scheme looks like, I think it's where employers and for the demand side and the supply side, which is the tertiary institutions, can work together to co-design and co-deliver programs. And I gave a good example of this, now. So I think that is very important, because when the supply side just develops the training program and the curriculum, it doesn't necessarily mean that the demand side, the students will be ready for the demand side. A very good example of this is Fiji Water. They signed a $15 million partnership with FNU, and they're looking at curriculum, teachers, and also the equipment within the FNU, but working with the FNU by co-designing and co-delivering training. So I think we need to start looking at that if we want to really ensure that the labor market meets the requirements of local employers and businesses.
We need to add quickly on this, Dr. Eddy, just in relation to having a national upskilling program rather than just a workshop here, a seminar there. It just wouldn't do it for us. It needs that decisive action. Do you believe the infrastructure is ready to get this moving quickly?
Yes, we have the platform. We have our 3 universities to push this through, and with expertise within, I'll be able to help. We will be able to help take this on board. I like the notion of co-deliver and co-design, which actually enforces the industry to come on board. Now, for us at the commission, at the supply side, we have 3 types of institutions. One, the school. So the school, they train and then they look somewhere for work attachment, get the work ethics. And the other one is the school industry, where the school sits within industry. For example, EFL, they have a school within their own industry. Telecom, for example. And then the third one is the newest model, is the school connect with industry. It's a signed agreement. So they don't have the workshops at the school. So they just sign an agreement with any hotel, for that matter, and all of the practices that are needed in a small classroom or in a lab, in a workspace within the classroom, these are all done at the industry space. But they will need to have all the industry MOUs with each of the industry stakeholders, that they are connected with teaching the theory component of all the courses. And that seems to be one of the best model, because it gives their leverage for that particular learner in the classroom, full-time exposure for 1 year or 2 years or one month, whatever that may be, within the industry space and culture and environment.
So the way forward is definitely university combining with the industry to come up with solutions, and the actual outlines of courses to have that ready in terms of having work-ready issues. And I think that's a great idea, and looking forward to this coming. I know some universities are already doing that, and that is a forward-looking plan, and that needs to continue. Let's talking back about the Pacific Australia Labour Mobility Scheme, the PALM scheme. Government facilitated. It is a deliberate, organised program that sends Fijian workers to Australia. It provides income for those individuals. Remittances come back to Fiji. But this survey is telling us it is also a documented driver of our skills loss. Should the government be having a serious, honest national conversation about the terms, the scale, and the conditions attached to the PALM scheme? You've said it's a crisis.
Yeah, Vijay, I worked with government before, particularly the Ministry of Employment, and I spent about 15 years working for the ILO, looking at labour market, private sector development. And I remember when the seasonal work program for the Pacific was being discussed, and it was started off with the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, Helen Clark, and the President of Kiribati, Sanete Tong. They agreed that the net benefit of this scheme should be felt at the sending country, so in the Pacific Island countries. But if you look at the results of this survey, what it shows, it doesn't reflect that. So I think we need to re-look at this, the scheme, whether it's really working for us. We know it's sending about $1.4 billion in remittances, and that's creating consumption and moving the economy. But what is it doing in terms of skills and labor market? Because while remittance can come in a lot today, tomorrow it may reduce. In the 1 year it may reduce further, depending on how the Australian and New Zealand labor market is working. While if you invest in skills development to make sure that there's adequate and the right skills available for the local labor market, which supports the businesses, employment and economic growth, you're looking at more of a long-term solution. So I think it goes back to my first key message, is that the labor market actors need to get together. So employment, talking to Ministry of Education, talking to the Ministry of Commerce, talking to the Ministry of Immigration, to make sure that the labor market is functioning well. That is very important. And also making sure that we prioritize our local labor market and not of the others, because that's what it seems to be happening at the moment.
Dr. Eddie?
Yes, talking about skills, one of the things that, apart from the key skills that are taught, one of the things that we want to enforce to our institutions, particularly the universities, are the soft skills, which is very much something that is in demand by the industries nowadays. And there's the second one is the entrepreneurial skills. Now, this actually all along in our systems of education, I'm talking about 20 years ago or 30 years ago, We go to a school and then primary school, secondary school and tertiary school, then you get a qualification and then you look for a job. Mostly at the time, maybe you join the police force or join the military or join nursing. The main, now in Fiji and right across the work variations have really changed drastically for the last 5 years in terms of the current and the work for the future skills that are needed. So entrepreneurial is something that we are enforcing right now. So people to come out thinking that I learn the skills in how to run my business and then I get a loan from available avenues that are available by government and the private sectors. Then I start my business after 3 years of working. That's a big shift. There's a school that we have in Taviuni, it's Tutu Vocational Center. They train employers, they don't train employees. So you come out of that, you start up your farming business. That's a mindset. I think right now our vocational school in Navuso, they are slowly into that to help train the farmers to go, not join any Ministry of Agriculture for that matter, but go and start up farming and for any other sector for that matter. So this is a big shift that we are trying to enforce into our institutions, particularly the universities, the enforcement of training of entrepreneurial skills to ensure that they have the skills necessary to be able to start up their business, whatever that may be. It can be maybe a small canteen at home or a taxi operations and so on and so forth.
Now, the report's conclusion calls this a call to action. You've termed it as a crisis. It talks about sustained investment, innovation and collaboration. Those are the right words based on the situation we see that is already staring at us. Fiji has had reports before, many reviews and many reports. We can do more reviews after this as well. We've had calls to action before. What needs to be done quickly? Have we already started doing it? And what type of support are you getting from government and other stakeholders to make sure we're dealing with this quickly?
Vijay, I think when we were designing, implementing this survey, right from the beginning, we made sure that we integrated into it and brought in partners as part of the committee, donor agencies and development partners that will support the implementation of the findings. So this is something that we had forecasted in the beginning, and we included these development partners. And based on the findings of this report, we then started to have the discussion with the development partners to look at the next steps after this is launched. And we are now at that stage at the moment where we're trying to fine-tune what we need to do. But the three key messages that we are going to work on now is one, the labor market actors need to work quickly to make sure that the supply and demand side of the labor market balance. We need policies, we need programs in place very quickly. Number two, for employers to contribute and support development of skills and all, we need to access the 100% of our 1% levy. And number three, we need to realize that the first two things that I mentioned is not going to happen overnight. The labor market may come, maybe right size or right, made right, maybe 3 to 5 years. That we need to realize that more foreign workers will need to come in to buffer the skills gap until we get our labor market.
But not people stacking up supermarket shelves.
Well, I mean, if there's a need, then of course there will be. But again, if you look at foreign workers that are coming for stacking supermarket, they'll stack the supermarket, they'll do the cashier work, they'll do the inventory, multiple tasks they'll do compared to locals where you say, no, I'm only going to stock shelves, I'm only going to do a cashier and so forth. So this also needs to be factored in. But what we're going to do next is we're going to work with 2 development partners, and we are going to make sure that we fine-tune the findings of the skills gap. So if you're looking at chef is number 1, we are meeting businesses that have indicated that this is number 1 problem. And the good thing is about this is that they are our members, so we are supporting our membership. So that was another strategic move that we made as part of this, to understand under chef how many are executive chef, sous chef, etc., and then work with Dr. Eddie and the institution to see then how we can bridge that with the employees and our members that we have, and the list we now have based on this survey, and of course the training that is coming through to them. So that's the next practical step I can tell you. But there are also other programs that we have. One is the student attachment scheme from the high school. We're working with the Ministry of Employment and the trade unions on that. The other one is trying to move on having this workplace attachments internship scheme, for teachers, high school teachers and career guidance teachers. So these are some of the examples moving forward from this survey, but we continue to work with development partners and especially government to see what we can do.
Yeah, the Prime Minister launched the report. He's given an assurance to assist.
That's correct. So that was also strategic. As I said, the Prime Minister is also the Minister for Statistics. He's also the Minister responsible for FNU. So it actually comes together under the Prime Minister's portfolio, and we hope to have more discussion with the Prime Minister for our recommendations.
We know the national budget is coming up soon. So what would be some of the things you anticipate in the next 12 months that needs to happen?
Well, okay, so in terms of the budget, hopefully there's a decision on the 1% levy. I mean, if that happens, that will be a game changer for employers. But I'm hoping that the education institutions get adequate funding to make sure that the supply side is also, effective. But again, sometimes it's not a matter of how much money you get, it's a matter of how much you have and how to utilize that better and more effectively. So, I think that is an important conversation that the supply side of the labor market needs to have. And I just wanted to mention that this survey is the demand side. We still need to look at what is the situation in the supply side, and I think the Education Commission is working quite well in providing that. So with the Education Commission's report and this demand side survey, I think we'll be in a better position to see what policies and programs need to be put in place.
Dr. Naisele, immediate call to action required. We're talking about next 12 months critical based on the crisis point we're at. What we need to do.
Thank you, Vijay. We got key stakeholders on board already. We used to have this APTC. They're now coming on board to register with us as Pacific Australia Skills. Now actually it's a government to government under the government of Australia. So they're coming to not to establish as a school, but to come to help support the Commission and Fiji for the niche area, that they can help support in terms of program to resources. So they're currently working with the Navuso to help support for the meat industry, the meat works back in Australia. So this is one example. Of course, the other key niche areas in hospitality, and of course now they see this list here, they'll be able to identify where are the support areas they can provide to help support the institution to provide the resources available to make them available for the trainers and the students to learn from. And of course the budget, as Mr. Ben has mentioned, it will be good to see particularly for the funding for our tertiary institutions, for that matter. We're grateful to government for what they've been doing the last years that helped build some of the teaching and delivery capacity of some of our universities and institutions, for that matter, in terms of providing facilities, workshop, and upskilling, upgrading for our lecturers and our teachers, for that matter. So, as well and truly, that's where we are heading to. Having got this report, hopefully in the next 6 months, the two of us will see together how best this has shifted to another level to ensure that this is coming to operations. And
we definitely will have you back in the next 6 months or so to have a review, or maybe after the budget. Hopefully the good news comes. On behalf of our listeners and viewers, Edward and Dr. Eddie, we'd like to thank you for coming forward and having these straight talk discussions. Of course, very timely, and we need to act now. We have a lot of work to do in this area. With the report out telling us the situation we're in. That's the show for tonight. Until the next fortnight, have a great evening.